Hey everyone. In this video, I want to talk to you about how you ought to give yourself more credit because all of us often forget our past and all the things that we've already made it through. I mean, think about this. You've had a lot of tough moments in your life, right? Like rough periods where you were maybe a bit unsure whether or not you'd even make it through them in one piece or with your mental health being okay or that sort of thing. Think about how many moments you've had like that and realize you've made it through all of them so far. You've made it through everything that life has thrown at you so far. Like, give yourself a pat on the back for that because that is important. And so often we forget that. And yet, if we were to just remind ourselves of it more often, it would give us the strength needed to keep going, especially when we encounter more difficult moments, either in the present moment or in the future. It's always helpful to remember you've made it through everything that life has thrown at you so far. All of those difficult periods where you were a bit unsure of your capability to get you through them. All of those periods where you may have fallen into depression or you may have been just feeling somewhat burdened or overwhelmed by life. You made it through those moments. So remember that and find strength. We need to give ourselves more credit. Even just beyond making it through difficult moments, think of all the goals you've achieved already, all of the things that you weren't quite sure you had it within you to accomplish them. You've done that already plenty of times by now. A lot of you are probably around like college age or maybe even a bit older than that. Like, realize that you made it to university if you wanted to do that. Like, if that was your goal, you've done it. So that is yet another thing to be proud of. Or if you at least just made it through school, because I certainly didn't like school growing up. So that was an achievement on its own for me. I didn't like the structured environment. I didn't like the lack of freedom. I hated school, but I made it through. It's like, that's something that's still worthwhile. That's still an accomplishment. Or whatever goals you've made for yourself that you've already acquired. Only you know them, right? I can list off a bunch of examples, but they're not going to land with everyone because we all live different lives. But you know what you've accomplished up till now. So remind yourself of that whenever you're facing a new goal or thing that you want to achieve and you're scared of your abilities to be able to handle it. Remember all those times in the past where you went through that same thing with prior goals and yet you were able to make it through and accomplish them. Just use that to find strength, to fuel you forward, and to give you that intrinsic motivation to keep going when you're accomplishing your dreams. And then the last thing I want to remind you of is that you've already grown so much personally by now, right? Like, think about that as well, especially because, my whole page is basically centered around personal growth, right? And one thing that can happen is when you're constantly working on yourself, you can kind of forget the work that you've already put in, like how far you've already made it. Because for the most part, personal growth is kind of an endless journey. Like, there's no like real, conclusion to it, except for when we end up passing away, right? Because we can always be improving ourselves. There are always things we can be working on. But you don't want to let that fact knock you off from all that you've already accomplished, all the growth that you've already made thus far. You don't want to let yourself get into that mentality of, I can always be better, I always have flaws. It's like, no. Don't only be thinking in that negative way. Remind yourself of what you've already done as well. For instance, I was not confident growing up. I'm confident now, but I wasn't growing up. So that's something that I can give myself. I can say, hey, I worked on myself enough to actually be confident in who I am now. I've worked on myself enough to actually like who I am, to accept who I am. Like, remind yourself of those things, of all that personal growth and development you've already made up till now. Especially if you're still on the journey of pursuing growing even further. Just keep reminding yourself what you've already done. Because, guys, it's really incredible when you think about the amount of things we can do in a lifetime. And even in some cases, what you've already done up till now. Like, I'm only 28. To me, that's pretty darn young. To some of you, it may be considered old. I don't know. Or even young to many of you as well. But, it's just crazy what you can do in short periods of time. So always be reminding yourself of all the things that you've done up till now. Just give yourself more credit because we all deserve it. even if you feel like you haven't done all that much, I'm sure you've actually done some things that are noteworthy. And maybe you don't give yourself enough credit, or you're being too humble, or whatever it may be. But seriously, just give yourself credit for it. I mean, come on, like, we've all done special things. Even if the biggest one is just the amount of growth that you've acquired for yourself as a person and for your personality. That, if you ask me, is one of the most important things, even more important than accomplishing goals and dreams or making it through difficult. Well, that is important too, but I really believe at the end of the day, our personal development is the most important thing, because it's the one thing life can never take from you. No matter what happens to you, life cannot take away your personality, who you are at the core. So the more that you work on that, you basically have something that you'll carry with you your entire journey. So that's why I believe it's so important, and that's why I believe we all ought to give ourselves more credit. So remind yourself of these things as much as possible, and just celebrate them. Celebrate how far you've made it. You deserve it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys in this video. And before I end it, I do want to point out something funny, which is that maybe you've noticed, but I got incredibly sunburned over the weekend. So yeah, I look like a lobster right now. And actually, it's funny enough that when I was looking in the mirror, it made me laugh, because I was like, holy crap, dude, you look like you belong in the sea with all the lobsters out there right now. And I was even thinking, like, if I was on a date with a woman and she said something that made me blush, she wouldn't even be able to tell, because my cheeks are already red as hell. So yeah, that's pretty funny. If you made it this far, now you got to see some of the jokes that I was thinking of, because yeah, I got way too sunburned. Hopefully it doesn't last too long, but for now, I am the red man. That's also why I wore red, to make it look less obvious. You see? Think it's smart. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, feel free to subscribe if you like content like this. Otherwise, like the video and leave a comment for the algorithm. That's the easiest way you can help me out, and let me know your thoughts on this topic. Let me know what kind of self-talk you have for yourself to remind yourself of your strength, because it's just an important thing to do. But anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. Arrivederci!